What is up, guys? Oh, we still have old summary text. Let's change that. Very organised. There we go. Sorry guys, just sorting that out there. There we go, cool. Awesome. How are you all doing on this very sunny Sunday evening? I hope everyone is good. And today we are going to do a little bit of a discussion on the reveals from this year's Warhammer Fest. So that's just happened this weekend at the Rico Arena in Coventry. So that's going on. That's been going on this weekend. Lots of cool things have been revealed from there for all the game systems and stuff that GW do. So like the Hobbit, 40k, Sigmar, 30k, Blood Bowl, all sorts of stuff. And so I thought, what better thing to do than, seems as that's all nice and fresh, go through the stuff that's been revealed and just have a quick little chat about each thing, see what we think about some stuff. Lots of cool, diverse things have been revealed, which is good. It's not just minis all the time. There's been a lot of other bits and pieces shown. So yeah, let's dive straight in. If you guys are on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, you can join in the chat. I'd like to know some of your guys' thoughts on some of the things that we're going to talk about. So feel free to jump in on the chat. But otherwise, yeah, we'll be next sort of 60 minutes or so. We'll just have a chat through. I'll just give my opinion for what it's worth on what I think on some of the things. Some of the models I absolutely love, some not so keen on. So sometimes I might have a bit of a rant on something, and you know, whatever, it is what it is. And you might have to excuse me a bit today. Allergy season is battering me the last couple of days, so if I look a little bit drowsy and out of it, or puffy and sneezing and coughing, you'll have to excuse that for hay fever. So we are going to jump straight into the first reveal of the weekend from Warhammer Fest. So I didn't get a chance to go myself this year. Now I've never actually been to Warhammer Fest, so just unfortunately coincides in a month where I've usually got quite a lot of other things going on. So you know, don't usually get the chance to go down. But like I would imagine everyone else, you know, keeping up with the releases and updates on the Warhammer community page and the Facebook page and stuff over the weekend. So saw a lot of the cool things that were released, and one of the big things that had been sort of teased over the last well, I suppose month, maybe 6 weeks, couple of months, something like that, was something to do with painting, and it turns out it is a new colour range from Citadel, which is their contrast colours. So these basically are a bit like a thick wash from what I've seen, and from the image that they've shown, it looks like there's around about 35 paints going to be in the range, and they basically, you could apply them straight onto, like, say, a white primer coat, and it will like base, wash, and like sort of highlight all in one go for that colour, which is really cool. There's a lot of cool things that I think you're going to be able to do with it. Like, there's some images that people have shown from models that have been purely painted with these contrast paints, and you will literally be able to go, here's like 5 different colours for a model, just paint that on and you're done. So like for tournament goers and people who've got like huge hordes of stuff to paint, it's going to be really, really cool. The thing I'm most looking forward, I think, maybe to trying them out is utilising them with existing paints. Difficult colours like yellow, sometimes reds, and there is a contrast colour for white, which I'm really, really looking forward to doing those, and some flesh tones, because I'm always looking at trying to do new tones and colours for flesh and things. So like those are my most, the ones I'm most excited about. Things like the blues and greens and stuff. It's kind of, they're usually not too bad anyway, but for people who've got hordes and hordes of models that they want to paint, this is going to be really cool. And in general, should hopefully like improve. There'd be like no reason why now, if you're going to a tournament and you're like usually, well, I'm not much of a painter or whatever. Like with these, there is going to be no reason for you to not get a relatively consistent, cool looking army going. So yeah, these I think could be pretty cool. There's two major things that I'm a bit concerned about, whether I've just missed it or it hasn't been released yet, is what their cost is going to be, and if you're painting entire armies and stuff using these paints, if it's going to be that cost effective. Anyone who knows, if they use washes a lot or the shade paints a lot, it soon goes, and like the bigger paint pots are like £4 something, I think, retail. So I mean, like these being a technical paint as well, are these going to be in the sort of £4 or £5 range? And just depends how far the paint is actually going to go as far as being able to paint a horde of miniatures and stuff. So that's my only one slight concern. And the second is that hopefully it doesn't react like the soulstone paints that came out that they did, where you could do like the gemstones and stuff, and some of the other technical paints, sometimes like Blood for the Blood God and the Nurgle's Rot paint, can go a bit gloopy after a while when left for a while. So if you're not using them consistently and stuff, it might go a little bit gloopy. So that's the only two things, like the price and whether that's how they turn out in the end. My only two concerns. But I mean, I can't, I haven't tried them out, I haven't used them. It's going to be just something you're going to know when you've actually got your hands on them. But that is it's a really cool thing that they've come up with, something that's a little bit different, that it's sort of taken the paint dip and done method almost from Army Painter and taken it one step further and gone, well, you can actually paint these colours on, and it almost does the same thing, just in but at the time you're painting it on, so you don't have to paint it all and then dip it. Still, it's just doing it as which is really, really cool. So I'm interested to get my hands on some of those and try it out and see maybe some different techniques and see how you can use it with the existing paints. So that was the first big sort of reveal and thing that they've been leading up to for a while. They've done like a video and some teaser things on painting stuff. So the next thing that I've got written down that they'd obviously shown off, and I think you could purchase over the weekend, was the Funko Pops. So they're a bit like the pop vinyls and stuff that I'm sure a lot of you have seen, where they do a lot of like cult classic characters, and from, I mean, like now pretty much any kind of franchised film or anything that comes out remotely successful tends to get the characters turned into a pop vinyl collectible figure. I've probably got one somewhere here, I think. Have I? Oh, maybe not. Must be in the... Oh, there we go. I've got a big one. We've got Big Daddy from Bioshock, one of the bigger pop vinyls. So, I love things like this, little collectibles. I'm a little bit gutted that the initial ones are purely just you can get an Ultramarine, a Space Wolf, a Dark Angel, or a Blood Angel. I was a little bit gutted about that. I would have thought that they would have, initially they could have gone fine with the Ultramarine, maybe an Orc, a Chaos Marine, and then maybe something else, like maybe something Eldar. Just because, like, certainly like an Orc and a Chaos Space Marine are like, an Orc, well, for a long time was the, recognisable Xenos enemy, and it's the most common relatable sort of monster creature kind of thing that people outside of Warhammer and these franchises will sort of know, probably the most. And a Chaos Space Marine obviously would be an obvious opposition to the Space Marine. So I was a little bit gutted that it was just Marines as this first release. Hopefully they will. I mean, if they don't do more, then I think that'd be really stupid. But so hopefully they do more, and they'll do some. I'd love to see like some characters. I can imagine like the Young Khan in a pop vinyl, which would be really cool. I hope that turns out to be a slightly larger range of stuff, because I mean, I'm a sucker for stuff like that. Just a collectible that is related to my hobby. So those I think were available this weekend because they'd just been shown in the latest White Dwarf and stuff that they were, and recently been shown that they were coming out. So they've got the Funko Pops on the go. Then we saw the first example of the painted Sister of Battle. So they've been posting up some rendered images and stuff, the graphic images of the one of the new Sisters of Battle models that they've almost sort of used as like the prototype model that that they've shown on the sort of decorative base, and that's like with steps and candles and stuff like that. So they showed off that miniature actually produced and painted up, which looked really cool. So that's going to be cool. I think just to sort of keep that. I would imagine because they've done such a big restructure on those models and bringing them up to the modern line of miniatures and how they're making the miniatures now and stuff, that it's been quite a slow grow process for that. So I think doing things like this with almost that same model is just keeping it ticking over, keeping people's interest ticking over, rather than having to keep going and here's another model or here's something else or whatever. They've managed to keep it down to just this one model for now that they've previewed. I maybe would have thought that they could have previewed like maybe even just some graphic ideas of some of how the models might turn out to look in the new range, but you kind of get the idea from like the updated Celestine and this miniature. So we saw the painted Sister of Battle. We then saw, which they teased I think last week, Chaos Knights. So this is something that I think ever since the Imperial Knights came out, a lot of people that I spoke to about that, we were like, oh yeah, okay, these are awesome, but how cool would they be for Chaos? And you've seen so many awesome conversions into Chaos Knights. Things like using the big ball off the plague furnace, the Skaven plague furnace, using that as almost like a mace for a knight. The obvious thing of like having teeth and claws and bones and stuff protruding out of the shoulder pads and all that kind of thing, alternative heads and faces. So people have done like amazing conversion jobs along the way, but now that they're actually bringing out the like a Chaos Knight kit, and they're accompanying it with a codex as well, which that was kind of, I wasn't really expecting that. So I'm hoping that you're literally going to be able to take every variant of Knight as a Chaos variant, which I think that would be really, really cool. And it's another way to just keep selling Knights. And I think some people get a bit fed up with it. It's like, oh yeah, Imperium get all these big cool miniatures and like Chaos still, although they've had some nice releases recently, it's like, yeah, but it's still all the vehicles and all the all the big stuff is still going all to the Imperium. So having the Chaos Knights and actually in their codex, I think would be really cool. And it'd be interesting to see what some of like the the stratagems and stuff, whether they just keep it as it is, or whether they almost like just copy paste the Imperium stuff, or whether they do their own kind of version of the same type of thing, if you like. What do you think? Is there any hope to see any Necron release soon? So Necrons, I really don't know. They've kind of been like really quiet I think like with Necrons for a while, and again whether it's they seem to fit into the category. I think Necrons at the minute fit into the category of armies where it's a bit like, what do we kind of do? Because almost like their little tricks and their sort of nuances that you've seen just like don't work really anymore. You know, things like reanimation and stuff was their thing, wasn't it? That was the Necron thing, and it's just not really doing anything. So I think it's when it seems to be that when armies and codexes or army books and stuff fall into the category of when the army's main sort of, you know, theme isn't working anymore, they're like, oh, okay, well, what are we actually going to do with this? They need to have like a massive overhaul. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they could be working on some Necron rules and stuff in the background, but I don't know. Is the honest answer if they would come out yet. You know, obviously the updated rules for the Ynnari are in the White Dwarf and things, so they've done those. It could be, it's so random with their release stuff. They could do, knowing how they are there. If this Chaos Knights book is going to come out, depends how that fits in line. I would have thought as well, if there was anything major for Necrons, that Warhammer Fest could have been an opportunity for them to even just tease it, not even actually give anything away, just tease something, you know, like a little video that they do or something. So I don't know is the honest answer with Necrons. I think they've been very underwhelming since 8th edition, and to be fair, they could do with some. Well, could they do with some new models? They've got a lot of stuff in, you know, in comparison to some armies, they've got a lot of stuff in their range. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. So that's the Chaos Knights Codex. I mean the Chaos Knight kit that they previewed looks pretty cool. To be fair, I hope they do a similar thing that they've done with some of the knights and do like Forge World heads and things like that for them in the future, and maybe do like weapon upgrades and stuff. That would be pretty cool if they did that sort of thing. So then, talking about the Imperium and vehicles and cool things that they get their hands on, we have the preview of two new, one new and one sort of alternate version of some Imperial vehicles. So we have another version of the Primaris Repulsor, which is the Executioner, which had like options for like a plasma type weapon, and one was almost like a huge sort of cannon on it. I've never been a fan of the Repulsor model, so the Executioner variant doesn't really do anything for me at all, and it kind of just for me is just like, what, with all the other cool models and all the other stuff they've got out there, why are you still just like another Primaris vehicle? Just a separate one would have been cool. Just bringing out some extra guns for an already, in my opinion, existing ugly block of a model that just sits there with guns sitting on top of guns sitting on top of guns is just a little bit lame. But you know, whatever, cool. And then you've got the Mechanicum Scorpius Dune Rider, otherwise known as the Mechanicum Inflatable, by the looks of it. The little rubber ring. I don't know how that sits with me at the minute. I love that they've thought about like transporting the Mechanicum and the Skitarii stuff around, but just given how like the Heresy Mechanicum stuff is, where it's all like, you know, on like big tracks and things like that, this thing sort of like being like a floating like speedboat kind of thing is just a bit, yeah, I'm not entirely sold. I like the little things where like the gun on the front, the side of it is very much in the vein of the Dune Crawler's cannon, the way the sort of shape of it on the side. So I like that sort of thing to it. I'm just not entirely, I don't know, I just think it's going to look a little bit odd. I don't know. It'd be one of those models, I think, for me, that you need to see it actually in the flesh to appreciate it better. And again, maybe it's things like the color schemes as well, because it's obviously being shown to you in like the generic color scheme that GW used for Skitarii, in the Mars pattern, like the coloring. Some of those models look so much better in other color schemes. So I think that one's going to be maybe a slow grow, but at the minute, not a huge fan of the Scorpius Dune Rider, but still cool model and a bit out of the blue. Wasn't expecting Mechanicum to necessarily get anything at the minute. So that was pretty cool. So the next sort of 40k thing that came out is the Apocalypse box game. So basically a box set giving you the rules, like the sort of stratagems and things. I think there's like 300 like sort of strategy type things in there. A load of tokens and bits and bobs on how to play Apocalypse. There's a thing as well about how I think later in the year, August time, you can go to Warhammer World and join in apparently the world's largest game of 40k, based around the Apocalypse release. So that could well hint at the fact that Apocalypse will come out around August time, July, August time. I would imagine just before, so maybe like July, and so that people could get their hands on the rules before going to that kind of event or something. I don't know. I'm still up and down with Apocalypse. I love the idea of putting everything on the table and just going mad with it. It's the thing for me with Apocalypse is that it's don't be as serious with it. So kind of having like extra rules and extra things for it. It's just like just keep it as just big 40k and just go mad with things. Maybe have a few different stratagems and stuff like other effects. It looks like they might have brought things like weather effects and planetary effects and stuff in, and maybe doing things like orbital bombardments and stuff. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure with the I find that they end up doing these box things a bit like Kill Team, where they put all this stuff into boxes and sort of hint at you to buy them, and then you go, oh, actually there isn't really too much content to this. A bit like Titanicus, they had the Grandmaster edition where you got everything in the box. Why is that not the norm? Like that, that should be normal. Apocalypse, it's like, okay, there's bound to be expansions in the future and stuff, and they'll just end up being like limited release boxes because they'll only sell for a limited run, and then people won't really be bothered by them, so they'll probably go to direct sales only, and then if they don't sell well there, they come out of line completely. So I mean, as much as I enjoy playing like bigger games, or did enjoy playing bigger games, I'm not entirely sold by Apocalypse. So the first sort of third of stuff that have been, or quarter of stuff that's been released, the Citadel color contrast, great. The Funko Pops, cool. I'll definitely collect some of those. So that's quite nice to have something a bit different. The Painted Sister of Battle, cool. Don't think I'll end up picking an army up of them, but it's cool to see how it's still progressing and how they're going to look. The Chaos Knights Codex, cool. I'd be on board with something like that, so I'd be interested to see what sort of rules and things come out for those. The Repulsor Executioner, again, like I said, I'm not keen on the Repulsor anyway, so it was a bit meh for me for something like that, but cool that they get some alternative weapon options for it. The Mechanicum Scorpius Dune Rider, again, I'm going to have to see that. And the Apocalypse set, again, a bit meh. So, a bit up and down, not the best of starts for releases, like for me personally. But, a few bits and pieces, codexes, miniatures, expansions, all that kind of stuff, pretty cool. So the next quarter of bits that have been released, so we go on to some of the 30k miniatures. So quite a few bits and pieces for these. You can tell looking at the miniatures, it's going to be nice and costly for people, but it actually does make me want to collect one of these armies, so I'm pretty pretty stoked with that. So the first thing, I'll get the thing out of the way that I just hate. So Vapelord Marco 420, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. We're just talking through the Warhammer Fest reveals. So feel free to let us know what you think of some of the things that we're talking about. We just got onto the 30k models. So yeah, I'm just going to get the model out of the way that I just absolutely hate, and it kind of goes along with the other vehicles that they have in their army that I just absolutely hate. Is the Custodes Ares, or Airs, however it's going to be pronounced, gunship. I just think it just looks absolutely awful. I mean, we know that some of these things, like a lot of the vehicles and stuff, just aren't to scale. I know that, and I'm fine with that and whatever. But just the shape of it, I hate it. I just can't. I can't stand the shape that they've gone for some of the Custodes stuff. So that's the disappointing model for me. I just don't like that, which is a shame because I love like the Custodes jet bikes. I love the Custodes dreadnoughts. I think they're really cool, and the other Custodes models I think are awesome. But their vehicles, I just cannot get to grips with their vehicles. Again, I think a lot of it comes down maybe sometimes to the color scheme a little bit, but it basically looks like a mini version of the big ship that they had, and yeah, I'm just not keen at all really on that. But like I say, that's only my opinion. It's not, whatever. I'm sure Custodes players will be pretty happy with it, but I'm just not keen. So that's the model for me that I'm not keen on. All the others for the 30k stuff I think are pretty cool. So we've got some Blood Angel releases, some White Scar releases, and some Night Lord releases, and Dark Angel releases. Why did we not have the Dark Angel releases in there? Or I got those later on? Ah, there we go. Okay. So yeah, some pretty cool stuff for these. So we've got the typical thing of like every time they've done a Legion, then you seem to, you'll get like the Legion Praetor in the same sort of vein as the others, but with the heraldry of the Legion that they're releasing, and things like that. And you get like other commanders and stuff that are similar. And they're all getting their Dreadnought variants again, which is really cool because I remember seeing on Forge World a lot of the Legion specific Dreadnoughts were taken off sale, and I thought this is going to suck because they're really, really cool. But luckily they're bringing them back. And I do believe now Forge World have a deal where it's cheaper if you buy, I think if you buy a full Dreadnought with arms, you get one of the arms for free, which is actually a quite good saving given that the arms are sort of £12 to £15 an arm. That's not a bad saving. So for the Blood Angels then, you've got the Blood Angels Contemptor, which looks pretty cool. It's got like two sets of sort of, they look like lightning claws a bit, and I think he's got like a one-use like sort of jump pack type thing where he can jump into the enemy lines and stuff, which looks really cool. It'd be pretty cool actually to see a Death Company version of that, maybe. Someone convert it into a Death Company Dread. So they've got the Contemptor Dreadnought coming out for that. I can't remember if they've got the Leviathan Dread, because they now seem to be bringing out all the Legion Leviathan Dreadnoughts as well. They've got Chapter Master Raldoron for the Blood Angels. He looks pretty cool. On his base there's like a demon hand that's been cut off, whether that's part of his story. I'm not up to scratch at all with the Blood Angels really, even as far as in the Heresy and stuff. But he looks a pretty cool model. So a couple of bits and pieces for the Blood Angels. Then there was the White Scars. Now these miniatures, I had a White Scars army back in end of 6th edition into 7th edition, and then got rid of them, bought them back, and then got rid of them again. And now that I'm a bit more of a competent painter at like some of the tricky colours, like things like yellow and things like white, it's made me want to go back into these armies again. And I'd love to do a 30k White Scars army, and especially with these miniatures now, I think it's really cool. So the White Scars got a Leviathan Dreadnought. They got their Praetor, their captains and stuff, and they also got some Terminators, which in the paint scheme they're black, Now they are going to look awesome, like set against the white armor of the White Scars. The black Terminators look really, really cool. That was quite a surprise. 'Cause I was looking at them thinking, well, what are these? What are these from then? Because they're, you know, they just, and you could just about make out on the shoulder pad, like the red lightning strike. So so I think they're going to look really cool, set against the white armor of the rest of the White Scars army. So they got those, and then they got the Kaisergan Assault Speeder, which is a little bit like the Retro Land Speeder, but it's got like a longer front to it, an assault cannon and things. And they look really cool. And I always love that with the White Scars, like having the bikes and the land speeders and things. But I think it looks better that they've like almost got their own land speeder. You know, that's sort of, like I said, it's got the assault cannon on it. I don't know if they'll have variations of weapons for it, like maybe a heavy bolter or you know, some of the Heresy era weapons and stuff. But it looks, you know, a really cool model for them that just keeps to that. It looks very sleek as well, like because of the way it's got that sort of much more open cockpit than a normal land speeder, because of course the land speeder's got the back part of it, and then it sits in. This is a bit more, it's there and you're in line with the back, so it seems very much more sleek than like a 40k land speeder, and a bit bigger. So it's a bit like, is it the Javelin? The other 30k like land speeder is the Javelin, isn't it? I think. So it's in that sort of vein, but a slightly different front end to it. So that's a really cool model. And then they've got the Keshig jet bikes, which again are a bit like the other Heresy jet bikes for just a generic, you know, the ones with like the long, a bit like the Custodes jet bikes, but the you know, the long front to them, with like the engines either side and stuff. So again, they look really cool. Like an army of those would look, like 9 or 12 of those would look sick. So yeah, lots of cool models for the White Scars. So definitely tempted to. I've got a few sprues I think left from some of the plastic Heresy kits. You know, like the Betrayal at Calth and things like that. I'm sure I've got a couple of sprues left over of some minis that would make some pretty cool White Scars. So maybe in the future. But then my favourite models that came out of the there are some more. The Dark Angels, and I can't remember if the Night Lords was this or has been previewed before. But the Dark Angels again, they've got both their dreadnoughts. They've got the Contemptor and the Leviathan again, which actually for them look really cool. I'm not really a Dark Angels fan, although I really loved, which I wanted to get one. I'm not sure if it's even still available. I wanted to get one and paint it up as part of a Dark Angel sort of theme or whatever. Was the Chaplain Dreadnought, because of the big wings that it had, like on the front of the armor plating, and because of the Dark Angel insignias and stuff with the angel and things. On the dreadnoughts and stuff, it looks really, really cool. So they were actually quite a surprise to me, because I really am no fan of Dark Angels. So that was quite, you know, that sort of sparked my interest a little bit with that. Not enough to probably buy them, but they were really cool anyway. But my favourite miniatures from the 30k stuff that's been released are the Demons of the Ruin Storm. They just look awesome. Don't know about the paint scheme that GW have done them in, but they look really cool. So from what they've said, like they're supposed to be, these demons are supposed to be like the original demons of the Ruin Storm. So these are like some of the first ever demons that, and which is linked in with, is it Samus? Vapelord Marco 420. Thanks for providing this for the people like me who couldn't go. Yeah, man. Yeah, no worries. I mean, like I say, I couldn't go myself really, but it's just that I've tried to find everything, because there was a lot of releases, and just sort of condense it down a little bit to see what's. I mean, and then you can always go onto the community page to Warhammer community page, like to check it out. So you know, to actually see the minis. But yeah, man, no, it's cool. No worries. Yeah, is it Samus that the 30k Demon Prince, like the red one that came out, who was the Demon Prince of the Ruined Storm? So these are sort of in that kind of vein, and I think they're there to do with that line of the heresy, with like the original demons and stuff. Unfortunately, the first thing I thought about these was, like, I play RPG games and stuff, and I was like, these would be awesome enemies in an RPG game. But nonetheless, even in 30k, or even like for some conversions for 40k, they just look really, really cool. They've got like big sort of hammers and stuff, and yeah, they look pretty brutal. So really love those. And then I suppose the only other 30k style stuff that came out was some Mechanicum Armigers. So they've got like the Knight Armiger shell, but slightly changed chassis. And they've got some weird and wonderful weaponry, like, you know, like the Mechanicum have. But it's tied in with the Dark Angels versus Night Lords, because the Night Lords then have some Dark Mechanicum allies with them. And so there's like this sort of stuff has been brought out around that as well, because there's another big knight come out, but I cannot remember the name of the big knight. Oh, I cannot remember the name of the big knight. There's another knight anyway coming out, another Forge World knight, which looks awesome. Or is it based on the Porphyrion shell, the big knight? Maybe. You'd have thought I'd have done my research before doing this. But there's, yeah, some Mechanicum Armigers, which look pretty cool. Yeah, that's all the 30k stuff that's been shown. So the extra games, things like Blood Bowl and Titanicus, all that kind of stuff. So for Titanicus, there's they're bringing out the scenery sets where you get like little cool silos and things. Which I thought, does anyone remember the was it like Planetary something or other? Like it was an expansion set where you could make tiles for like your campaigns. So it all had the little like hex tiles, and you could build like planets and worlds and stuff for your campaigns. And you just had the little bits of scenery on it. The first thing I saw or thought of when I saw the Titanicus scenery was that you could use like the little silos and the little buildings and stuff to make a campaign map like that, so you could signify cities on it and all that kind of thing. So you know, that'd be really cool. Yeah, so they brought the Titanicus scenery sets out, and they brought out some upgrade sets for the knights as well. I think for 4 of the different knights at the minute, they brought out some upgrades, you know, different weapons and things like that, which is pretty cool. I still haven't got into Titanicus, but the more I see it, I am just like, I really want to get some, even just to paint up. I really need to get onto that. So moving on from that, then Necromunda. So there's some more hangers-on and hired guns that are coming out available. The most notable for me is the Cawdor guy. I believe the Executioner he's called, or something like that. Just carrying a huge two-handed axe. And I love the style and theming of the Cawdor gang this time round, with all the candles and stuff on their back and on their heads and stuff like that. They just look really, really, really cool, like fanatical, you know, religiously fanatical guys. Like, it just looks really cool. I love the theming on those. But some of the, I can't remember what the other pictures of the other hired guns were. Bear with me a sec, because they do look pretty cool, and they've got their names on there. Where that's the Titanicus. The Headsman is the Cawdor guy. The Headsman, and then there's a Dome Runner and an Ammo Jack. I believe the Dome Runner is like the female one with like a skull mask on. She looks pretty cool. There's also, I think there's also some more. I think there was another, some stuff released, shown the other day. some more. Another squat, I think, is coming out for Necromunda. There's also the Delac Gang upgrades, where it'll be the weapon upgrades and like the head changes and things. And there's some Delac heads this time round that have actually got robes on them, because I don't know if anyone's seen the Delac Gang, but they're all pretty much bare head, with like, you know, machinery and mechanics and stuff shoved in. But there's actually some robed ones, which looks pretty cool. So that's the Necromunda releases. No doubt I'll get my hands on those to paint, because I've been doing a lot of Necromunda commissions lately. So I'm sure a couple of my clients that have been sending me stuff will end up sending me those. So I'll be able to probably show you those models in a few weeks' time. So moving on to Blood Bowl, they showed the preview of the Wood Elf players, which looks pretty cool, nice and dynamic. You know, a typical, as you would imagine, an elf in Blood Bowl. And then they showed the star player, the Dryad star player, which is also available to the Halfling squads. So that's pretty cool. And then they've shown the Halfling team, but they'd shown those, I think, before anyway. A new pitch, new dice for the Halflings, and some match inducement cards, I think, are coming out for those as well. So some cool things for those games. Then we move on to the look at Warcry. So this is probably one of the most interesting things at the minute this year that I'm looking forward to. So it looks in the vein of Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar had Age of Sigmar Skirmish, a bit like, you know, the equivalent of Kill Team 40k. It didn't really take off massively. So I think what they've kind of done is they've gone, well, we'll have like a skirmish based game, but we won't tag it in with, because the thing I find about with Kill Team and things is it just ends up being mini 40k, which, whether that's their intent or not, I just think, but you could do this as mini 40k anyway. So why, again, going back to the Apocalypse stuff, it's just an excuse to put Gumph in a box and charge you a little bit more, or, you know, you'll get better value maybe, but, you know, charge you money for the same things in a box with a couple of extra rules. So I think what they've actually looked at doing this time is they've gone, right, we won't use existing factions, we won't use existing miniatures, we'll make new miniatures, new types of factions, and they will play in this sort of skirmish style game, maybe some different rules and things like that. Great. So I actually really like the look of this, and we've seen one of the other gangs, a couple of the other gangs before. The ones they've shown this time around are the Splintered Fang. So these kind of look a bit sort of Spartan soldier, but with a bit of a mixture of like an Atlantis vibe, but they're like snake worshippers. So it's like three different sort of things all mashed together. And like the one miniature, he's got like a hood, and he's got like a sort of face mask piece that's got like serpent fangs on the front. And he's got a huge snake that's like slithering around his arms and off his arm, and then other smaller snakes around his base and stuff. They've got like nets and barbed nets and tridents, and just looks really, really cool. A really interesting game. And I think that comes out a little bit later in the year. So I'm really, really interested. It's the Iron Golems and the Untamed Beasts is what they've already shown for two of them, and now they've shown off the Splintered Fang. So yeah, really, really cool. I'm really interested. So probably over the next couple of months when that actually comes out, or more information, and I'll probably get my hands on some miniatures. So maybe do one of the painting sessions or something on a sit down, one of our Sunday sessions, and paint some of those up, because they look awesome. Then for normal Age of Sigmar fans, the General's Handbook and the pitch battle profiles for 2019 were shown. They showed you that there's some new things for open play. So there's an open war army generator, which I imagine will maybe be just like it'll randomly generate your army for you, which that could be quite interesting. I've seen similar things done for that, and I've seen people do that before, so that'll be quite interesting. There's close quarters battles as well, so that's maybe like the equivalent of a skirmish type thing. Hidden agendas, the narrative play, Streets of Death, so that I imagine to be a bit like a Cities of Death expansion type thing, but for Age of Sigmar. Name generators, which would be, whatever, there's plenty of those around online. Mercenary companies. Now that could be quite interesting, that you could like hire, because they always had like ogres and stuff as mercenaries that they would fight with chaos, they'd fight with anyone. So mercenary companies could be quite interesting for narrative play. Then new battle plans, which you would expect. Tournament templates and meeting engagements. So the meeting engagements is the interesting thing for match play, because it's around 1,000 points, and it's supposed to be like sort of fast play, and I reckon that they will have some tweaked rules for basically playing competitive play at 1,000 points, and I wouldn't be surprised if you maybe see some tournaments based around that, because you could get a lot more games in at 1,000 points. So I reckon that might be something that they look into. So that's coming out very, very soon, because there's some new stuff for Age of Sigmar going up for pre-order at the weekend. The Forbidden Power or Total Power or whatever that's called. So that's coming up. So that won't be, the General's Handbook won't be far behind. So for AOS fans, that will be coming out very, very soon. Then moving on to Middle Earth news. So they released some Hobbit heroes and some ruffians to play against them, and some scenery to make some little Hobbit houses, which is pretty cool. So I wouldn't be surprised if there'll be a little video coming out soon on showing you how to integrate those and actually build them into a building, because you just get the front face plate, the two sides, and a chimney. You don't actually get any kind of building, because of course, the Hobbit houses are built into like the little hills and stuff. So I would imagine they'll put out a tutorial video showing you how to actually make a Hobbit house using that kit. But that was a really cool little idea, I thought. And then there's the Scouring of the Shire book that's come out that will be linked with those. And then Golfimble and Bandabrass have been released. I'm not massively up to scratch with a lot of the lore on some of these additional characters and stuff. Sorry, Bandabrass has not been released. Golfimble has been released, and then Diodwyn, Chief of the King's Knights, has been released, and he is, I think, also linked in with the Scouring of the Shire. So that stuff's been put out for Middle Earth, for fans of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and stuff like that. So then there's quite a few bits and pieces that were shown for like other companies that are releasing GW based stuff, where they've bought into the IP and things like that. So there's a few games coming out. There is the Chaos Bane game, which I think is like coming out on like PC and consoles and stuff, which looks like a hack and slash style game. There's Vermintide 2, where you now play against the Beastmen and stuff. So that could be quite interesting, because Vermintide was a popular game. And then Chaos and Conquest is another game that was shown. The only thing with these sorts of games is, and this still goes back to like the Space Marine game and the Fire Warrior game, which to me is, Space Marine is basically Fire Warrior with a Space Marine skin over it. And a lot of their other games is, I haven't played the, is it Inquisitor Martyr that was recently came out that looked really good. I haven't played that, but given the IP that GW has, their games to me are just so lackluster. Their digital games are I think just terrible given what they could be. I mean, you've got things like, I'm not saying to do it in this vein, but you've got games like Dark Souls and things like that, which are very dark and twisted fantasy games. But I mean, you've got this is the Grimdark, and so you could have such an immersive atmosphere and such an immersive game, like an open world RPG game, a bit like Skyrim, but for 40k would be absolutely amazing. So I'm surprised that no company, as of yet, or that GW haven't sold their IP out to a company to make a game like that. Battlefleet Gothic is good. Yeah, no, so I haven't played Battlefleet Gothic either, and that does look interesting. To be fair, the gameplay on that does look interesting. But yeah, I just think some of these other ones, again, it's just like quick fire games that just seem to come out. They come out and then die off, and then you see them in like the bargain bin at shops, you know, to buy the game, which is a shame because I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to break into that market as well to get people who don't, you know, if you're playing a game where you are a space marine or whatever and you're shooting up some orcs and chaos space marines and all this, and then someone says to you, you can actually go out and buy those figures and, you know, you can actually play the game on the tabletop. It's what's been so appealing for a lot of Kickstarters and board games. Like there's a Resident Evil board game, the Devil May Cry one is about to go on Kickstarter, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, all those kinds of things, Doom, is that people go, oh yeah, I really love the game, and then it's like, yeah, you can have the minis and stuff and you can play it on a tabletop. And it's worked for things like that because they've become cult classic games and people want to, you know, collect them, or they get into the franchise and they want them. And we all know that if decent games like that were out, people would play them quite a bit. Like Blood Bowl on PC and stuff was good. I haven't played it on console, but Blood Bowl on PC was pretty good as well. Although I think you can get a bit lazy with it because it obviously shows you and always tells you how to play, and it's very different to then when you actually play it on the tabletop. But yeah, so there's some of those games coming out. So it'll just be a case of like, you know, keeping my eye open on those and just seeing how they do actually turn out. But they are bringing out Warhammer Underworlds online. So that is the Age of Sigmar themed Shadespire like competitive like tabletop board game style game. I've only played a handful of games myself, and it's I thought it was going to go down the line of like Magic the Gathering a little bit, but with some minis involved. Whereas obviously like Warhammer Champions has kind of gone down the vein a little bit with like the booster packs and stuff. But I mean, it's a good game and it has a good following, and like the tournament scene for Underworlds is good. So like yeah, online I could definitely see, and I could probably find myself playing that more online, because I wouldn't necessarily have to go out and just buy all the stuff to get all the cards and everything else. I mean, it depends what comes in the game. You know there's going to be pay to play elements to it. But that's quite cool. I reckon that could do pretty well online. You know, it's a game that would suit online play. You know, it's in that kind of vein of Hearthstone and Magic and that kind of thing. So I think that would be quite a successful game. They also showed off Cubicle 7's Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which funnily enough is on my wish list for the UK Games Expo. When I go to the Games Expo, one of my things to buy there is the fantasy role-playing book. They've got like the starter set and I think like a main set as well that comes with all the rules and stuff. But I haven't played the latest 40k RPG stuff. I played the Dark Millennium one, and that was really interesting and cool. So again, RPGs and stuff like D&D style, but in the Warhammer settings, I think is really cool. So I think that'll be popular amongst people who are into D&D and tabletop games and stuff. So that's one way to keep, again, people who aren't so keen on 40k and Age of Sigmar, but people can still be interested in what Games Workshop have to offer. And certainly even for like new releases, if they bring out new factions and stuff and they incorporate those into like their RPG games and their online games and stuff, people will still feel that they're actually gaining from those releases still. You know, rather than going, oh, okay, so I'm not into the base games, but you've got these new factions and races, but you're not putting them into your other games and stuff. At least if they do that, then people will still feel that they are benefiting from these new releases and things like that. And then again, I think the last thing is that I'm actually really interested to pick up, again, price dependent. Bandai showed off their action figures. Now, again, how there have not been Warhammer action figures prior to this, like actual, you know, posable action figures, then I've no idea why that hasn't been out. I know there hasn't been things like films, and obviously the lack of success with a lot of their console games will contribute to this. But they showed off like their 12-inch tall Primaris Space Marine. Now I hope they stay unpainted. For two reasons. I hope they stay unpainted. One, so that you could actually paint them. But I hope, on the flip side, I hope if they do stay unpainted, that's the reason, and not that because they're going to stay like that to like mimic them like being like this. You know, actually in their plastic state, that you could actually paint them. If they come painted, that's cool as well. But it would just be pretty awesome to actually be able to buy like a 12-inch tall Space Marine that you could actually paint. But they're apparently fully posable. There's some little ones as well that look like the pop vinyls and the Funko Pops and stuff. So those look quite interesting as well as the little action figures. But again, it's just getting more people who are outside of the game, you know, interested in. There's a lot of people out there who don't even know what Games Workshop is still, and especially a lot of kids now who are so into console gaming and online gaming and stuff like that, like, you know, the Fortnite generation, don't tend to look beyond their PC or their console at games. But this sort of thing is something that those types of people would notice and things, and then go, oh, okay, so what's this or what's that, and could maybe get into the game from there. So I'm pretty cool, but I love just collecting collectibles and minis and all that kind of stuff anyway. So for me, it's the perfect kind of thing. So yeah, loads and loads of reveals, and cool that there is a good amount of reveals from all their types of games. They also announced that Aeronautica is coming back as well. I never played that, but I would certainly have a look at playing that this time around, dependent on, again, prices and things like that. I'm still waiting for them to bring something like Mordheim back. Although I don't know whether they will, because of how the fact they killed off Fantasy World, and obviously it's all the realms and stuff now for Age of Sigmar. And if they ever brought back like Epic or something like that, I would absolutely play and collect that. Which is, I say, why I want to really pick up Titanicus, because it's mini knights, and I could have, you know, I'm never going to buy a Reaver Titan or a Warlord Titan, but I could have a little one and have those in my cabinet. So yeah, Aeronautica's coming back. I don't think there was anything else major. There was like little bits and pieces here and there, but those were like the main releases that were out. So yeah, a bit gutted that I couldn't go. I'll probably try and aim to go next year, and then who knows if we can maybe get a bit of coverage for you guys from it for next year, because yeah, you know, a lot of people can't attend it. You know, certainly people internationally who just can't get over here and see it, and it's one of those rare occasions for us that being over here in the UK, I think that we've actually got access to something like this. I know we do have a lot of miniature companies, but having access to something as big as GW and, you know, things like Warhammer World and stuff, I think, you know, we just end up taking that for granted because it's just here. So being able to actually go to Warhammer Fest and maybe get some coverage and stuff like that for you guys and things would be pretty cool. But yeah, those are the reveals as of today from Warhammer Fest. So plenty in there to keep pretty much every hobbyist going, I think. You know, obviously we know GW do their releases every week, so of course there's going to be more 40k stuff coming out. There's going to be more Age of Sigmar stuff. I think Age of Sigmar will probably be the next few releases because the General's Handbook's coming out. Obviously they've just had the FAQ for 40k. and there's a few more bits and pieces and expansions coming out for Age of Sigmar. So I think those will probably be the next couple of releases. Then you might find that like Chaos Knights, Codex Chaos Knights gets thrown into the mix as a 40k release, just to sort of continue the Codex releases on for them without having to start redoing new ones. Because I suppose it depends now with 40k when they're going to get around or go the second cycle of starting books, because if they start doing that, you know that then that might introduce new rules, new little things. So I would say there's going to be maybe like Chaos Knights Codex, and then maybe they might do maybe a couple of little spot releases and things as books for 40k before you get any more. Maybe end of the year they might start looking at some other proper codexes again. But yeah, so pretty cool roundup for there. Next week, Sit Down Sundays will not be on. I will be away, unfortunately, so it will resume again in 2 weeks' time, which will be the 26th. So I'll have to keep my eyes open and see what happens in the meantime for that. So we can post up and see what content we're going to have for that. But again, guys, Sunday sessions is just sit down, chat about the game, chat about hobby stuff. Sometimes I'm painting, things like that. So we might have some models in to do some painting on next time, and I can set the other camera up to see about doing the painting. But yeah, otherwise, guys, thanks again for watching. You can go to glasshammergaming.co.uk for lots of cool articles on competitive 40k, information on tournaments, information on lists. Dan and Manny post up some battle reports and stuff that go up to YouTube. And I think in the next few weeks there's going to be a lot more content coming out because Dan and Manny are going to go full time with this. So there should be lots more cool stuff coming out. If you're not an elite member, you can sign up to be an elite member. Gives you access to lots of additional content, additional discount on Games Workshop product that Glasshammer sell on their website again. So check that out if you're interested in that. Otherwise, guys, enjoy your hobby for the week, and I will see you guys again in a couple of weeks. There'll be a new painting video going up on Tuesday, so again, check that out at glasshammergaming.co.uk, and on Facebook the links will go up for that, and I will catch you guys later.